My name is Kjersti Fløgstad. I'm the Executive Director here at the Nobel Peace Center. First and foremost, let's extend our heartfelt congratulations to the new and well-deserved Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Nihon Hidakuyo. This recognition is not only a testament to the tireless efforts, but also a powerful message that resonates deeply across the globe in these challenging times. While many of us were initially very surprised by this year's choice, it quickly became evident that this recognition is both timely and profoundly significant. In an area where rearmament persists and nuclear threats loom large, we are starkly reminded of the catastrophic consequences of nuclear weapons. The testimonies of the Hibakusha, the survivors of the atomic bombings, serve as a poignant and urgent call to action to ensure such devastations never happen again. Their stories illuminate the incredible power of individual voices and grassroots movements to shape political principles globally. As Alexandra Matvichuk said in her Nobel lecture in December 2022 on behalf of Center for Civil Liberties, she said, I quote, "Ordinary people have much more influence than they think they do. Voices of millions of people from different countries can change world history faster than interventions of the UN. So let's hope that this prize will encourage millions of voices to be raised against nuclear weapons." Please, again, join me in a round of applause for Nihon Hidakuyo and the Nobel Committee for their courageous and impactful decision. Here at the Nobel Peace Center, we are excited to embark on a year of celebrating, supporting, and delving into the work and mission of our new laureate. Today marks the beginning of this journey, and we are thrilled to have a full audience here and also online to share this occasion with us. We hope you will enjoy today's program, which includes the unveiling of the diploma by the committee's new chair, Jørgen Watne Frydnes, alongside the artist. A short lecture by the committee's chair on the Peace Prize laureate and the committee's considerations. And then, lastly, a distinguished expert panel discussion on the significance of this year's prize. As you see, a packed and exciting program ahead of us. So, first, welcome on stage to the chair of the Nobel Committee, Jørgen Watne Frydnes. Congratulations, Jørgen. How has your it's 25 hours since you were on stage. How has these 25? Have you been sleeping at all? How have it been for you?
Well, I've been sleeping very, very well.
Oh.
I was quite exhausted, to be honest. I had a great interview with the Japanese TV, which are here, late last night. And I was the last of about 30 different TV interviews. So it was a long day, but I think it was a good day in the sense that the message of the Peace Prize was given to all of the world through these media outlets.
It was well received.
It was, definitely. It was very much well received, but also it has an enormous impact, and you see how the media are interested in, which is a good sign.
That's good. Congratulations. Every year when the laureate come to Oslo to become the laureate, because that happens in the City Hall on 10th of December when they receive the medal, and they also receive a diploma.
They do.
Yeah.
And this diploma has an interesting history. For many, many years, for many decades actually, we used in the Nobel Committee the same diploma. And then from the 1990s onwards, it was a decision made to use contemporary artists from Norway to make the diploma. And so, in addition to receiving the prize itself, somehow bigger and more beautiful version than this.
We have chocolate replicas.
Exactly. Bring the chocolate and you'll see how it looks. Of course, it is with the diploma itself. And therefore, we are very proud that contemporary Norwegian artists are behind this diploma every year.
So this year, you have a new artist, and we're going to reveal the diploma actually. Should we invite the artist up on stage, do you think, before we reveal it? Let's
do that. And Maria Buskov, please. A bigger round of applause.
It has been a secret that you are the artist of the year. Mm-hmm. So this is the revealing also of you as the artist. Jørgen, would you like to...
So let me just explain a bit of that process. But this is a parallel process of actually choosing the Peace Prize. One of the beautiful things of being in the committee is, of course, we choose who will be the recipient of the Peace Prize. But we also get to discuss art. And I think to have art, peace together in the discussion in the committee room is also symbolic and very important. I'm going to ask you some questions after we've unveiled the... but what I just want to say is that every year there's a curator presenting different artists to the committee. We look through them. We look at what do we want to say this year. But it's not necessarily done at the same time as the decision being made for the prize itself. So in that regard, and I'm going to come back to that as a question, you don't know what the prize will be when you make the artwork. But should we...
Yes, you do.
Just kind of...
So Maria was one of the artists that was presented to you from the curator, and you made the decision, and then...
We were very happy to make that decision. You'll see yourself, but what we want to say, I think we really like the work you have been doing and what it communicates. So
yes.
Should we? Ta-da!
I leave it to the two of you.
So my first question, it's kind of the same question as the laureate gets. How did you react when you got the assignment in the first place?
First, I would like to give my warm congratulations to the winner, Nihon Hidankyo, and also thanking you, the Nobel Committee, for trusting me with this commission. So you asked me how I reacted. The first days and weeks, it was a mix of being very humbled, very proud, yet not allowed to tell anyone until today, but also overwhelmed, as it is such a big honor. I must say that I struggled a while to find out how to deal with it. But then the summer came, and the hours became long and wide, and I had to tell myself, the task is to make a work of art. That is what you can contribute with, and so I did.
tell us about the motive. Tell us a bit more about the process.
Well, the artwork is an abstract painting, and it is about freedom, choices, and imagination. I work with watercolor and tempera on paper, as here. Those are two different materials. The watercolor is fluid and transparent, almost with a life on its own. The tempera is dry and more heavily pigmented. This means that when I work, the materials require that I must make irreversible decisions. Both watercolor and tempera react immediately with the paper. So all of my gestures and marks are visible. It is not possible to erase anything. I don't make sketches. When I'm painting, I work in a flow, and the materials leave no room for changes in the process. My paintings are abstract, yet they can evoke something familiar. I find this gap interesting, and I'm searching for a connection between the known and the imaginary. The areas that cannot be easily measured, described, or explained. I paint fragments of things I've seen, structures and rhythms, the spaces that surround me, the light, nature, experiences, and emotions. Sometimes close up, sometimes more distant, as seen from far away. One may say that I leave my work open to the imagination. I wonder if I think the artwork is the right for the receiver. As you told, there was a process, and I was asked to deliver in 5 different artworks. And you, the Nobel Committee, have decided this one. I was very curious to see which one you chose, and I'm very pleased with the decision. Because it is somehow mysterious to create a diploma without knowing the receiver. But I'm actually not sure if it would be any easier if I knew it. I said that the artwork is about freedom. For the last year, it has been increasingly difficult to concentrate on the creative work in my studio. I'm devastated and heartbroken for the situation in the world. And there have been moments when making art seemed completely hopeless and irrelevant. But in the process of making this diploma, I was reminded of the importance of using what I possess. I have artistic freedom. I realized that it is more important than ever to use this privilege, because if I don't use it, it's not worth anything. So that's a freedom I will never take for granted, and that we should never take for granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you very much, Maria Biskov, for this. May I just have one comment? You were talking about the process. That was not. You can change it after, and that reminds me also of the prize and what atomic weapons represent. It cannot be changed if it's used. So it's kind of. So what you were talking was kind of, I was thinking, did you know? Because that reminds me so much of what this threat is, actually, and that this prize is pointing at. I don't know whether you have any other reflections.
I think it's very relevant. We're talking about abstract art. And the concept of nuclear war is abstract for many. It's hard to imagine. And that's why, and we're going to talk about that more later, how the hibakusha have helped us to understand such an abstract concept and to make it understandable, at least grasp some of the unthinkable.
Mm.
So we are very happy with the choice, and so thank you so much, Maria.
And congratulations on the honorable task of making this new diploma. Now, Jørgen, we want to hear some of your thinking and reflections around the process that you've been through and about the new Peace Prize laureate. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Nihon Hidankyo. As Kjersti said, this is a grassroots movement of atomic bomb survivors. I'm going to come back to that again and again. Testimonies, storytelling, the importance of creating norms as a way of strengthening this norm. But where to start in a room in Oslo on a quite peaceful and beautiful day in October? Should we start with the negative sides, with the why it's important now, or should we start in a more encouraging side? So let's start on the encouraging side, and let's just put down, acknowledge one encouraging fact, which is really encouraging. No nuclear weapons have been used in nearly 80 years. This great accomplishment might be taken for granted, but if I ask my grandfather or father, would you think these weapons in 1945 and the years coming would never be used again? I don't think the answer would, of course they will not be. So this is a great accomplishment that these weapons are not used. And the Hibakusha and the Nihon Hidankyo is of course part of a global movement. It is a global movement who's worked tirelessly to raise this awareness about the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of using nuclear weapons. And through this global movement, with the Hibakusha in the center, this powerful international norm developed, stigmatizing the use of nuclear weapons as morally unacceptable. This norm has become known as the nuclear taboo. I read in one of the articles in the newspaper saying, I mentioned it 4 times in a short speech yesterday. And of course, it is a reason for that. The testimony of the Hibakusha, the survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, is unique in this context. Their efforts have contributed greatly to this establishment. Of course, there's been many other actors. And if you do look at the history of the Nobel Peace Prize, you do see that the questions of nuclear arms, the nuclear race, the nuclear war has been identified several times. And it adds to this same question, the nuclear taboo, the norm. We will have a discussion afterwards with ICANN represented. They received the prize in 2017. To ban nuclear weapon is also a way of strengthening this taboo. So it has historical links in the history of the Nobel Peace Prize. I want to emphasize once again how these historical witnesses have helped to generate and consolidate widespread opposition by using their personal stories, and by doing so at a personal cost. Because if you think of your own story, if you think about telling traumatic stories, that comes with a cost. And I actually get quite emotional now, because if you look at your own society here in Norway, I worked with the 22nd of July for many years. The costs of those survivors, young people, to telling their stories once and again and again, Why is it important? It is important to establish a norm. It is to let people know and to educate new generations in Norway. And the work of the Hibakusha have been doing it on a global scale. They've been doing it for more than 7 decades. When I grew up, I was born in 1984. When I grew up, we learned at school about the Hibakusha. We learned about what the atomic bombings meant to people. Why is this important in the story of the Nobel Peace Prize of 2024? Well, because these kind of educational programs, so to say, is not the direct result of the Hibakusha and the Nihon Hidankyo, but it's the indirect. Young people all over the world have for decades learning about this and thereby strengthening a taboo, strengthening a norm. And that is an important part, and that is also one of the important part of the Japanese society today. How can new generations take on that responsibility, but also take on that historical necessity? Because the Hibakusha helps us to describe the indescribable. They help us to think the unthinkable. And they help us to grasp the incomprehensible pain and suffering. And that is not easy for those who are telling their stories, but it's also not easy for us receiving these stories. But it's even more important to do so. And I want to highlight something important as well, when we talk about art. How the Hibakusha have influenced culture, art, memorials, literature, all of which have helped to embed the nuclear taboo in public consciousness. So let's fast forward a bit. Imagine a world in which nuclear weapons have not been used on battlefields for 100 years. How can us as humankind depend on nuclear weapons as the main way of having a global security? It might work in 80 years. Will it last 100 years? Our answer to that, we cannot have a global system depending on our security on nuclear weapons. And that is why we need to listen to the Hibakusha, to Nihon Hidankyo, when they say nuclear weapons should never be used ever again, and we need to get rid of them. Of course, it will be difficult, it will be time-consuming, and will be a dangerous path to a nuclear-free world, but it's a path that we need to take one step at a time doing, and the Hibakusha shows us that path. We often say, and there are famous quote saying, darkness is a place, but the road is our light. And doing that, showing that road, showing that way, is also the work of the Hibakusha. Let's pass over to why now? A question I've been receiving all yesterday. It is alarming, and we'll probably hear more about that afterwards, that this taboo we're talking about, this strong global norm against the use of nuclear weapons, stigmatizing them as morally unacceptable, that norm is under pressure. Both in the sense that nuclear powers are modernizing, upgrading their arsenals. New countries appear to be preparing to acquire nuclear weapons. And what we all know is happening if you read the newspapers, threats are being made quite regularly to use nuclear weapons in ongoing warfare. All of this is reducing the strength of the taboo. It's a possibility to put pressure on it, and that is why we really want this year to have that focus. In the speech yesterday, I mentioned what we need to remember, and that is what nuclear weapons actually are. Again, that is where the hibakusha and their testimonies come in. These are the most destructive weapons we have on Earth. These are the most destructive weapons humankind have ever invented. They can kill millions and impact the climate catastrophically. And that is also an important part of this discussion. We'll probably talk about it afterwards as well. The use of nuclear weapons in urban areas could have catastrophic consequences for the entire planet because they're so much destructive, and the tests they have been done is not the same as throwing up huge piles of ashes in the earth, which could have lead to catastrophic climatic consequences. I'm gonna end up here soon. I just want to highlight again what Kjersti started to say. Individuals. The core of Alfred Nobel's vision was the belief that committed individuals can make a difference. You and me, everyone in this room. The hibakusha have decided to dedicate their life to change the world for the better, to make sure humanity doesn't have to experience what they experienced in August 1945. And I think it's important to remind ourselves how each and every one of us can make a difference, but also to honor all those who survivors, all those who survived that have already passed, all the survivors also from the nuclear tests being made elsewhere in the world, who, despite physical suffering, painful memories, have chosen, because it's a choice. You can choose to do something, and you can choose not to do something. The hibakusha, Nihon Hidankia, they have chosen to do something, which have a big relevance for all of humankind. They have provided thousands of witness accounts. And it's important when I say they have, but they're still doing it. They're doing it in an age where many of them are quite old. They're doing it to this day, and by doing it to this day, they're also upholding the nuclear taboo, making sure this are still seen for all of humanity as morally unacceptable. And that is why also we are impressed how new generations in Japan, with a strong culture of remembrance and continued commitment, these are carried forward. It's inspiring and educating people around the world. So I just want to end there to say this prize, we believe it's important in the world we're living in the geopolitical situation where nuclear threats is part of the big conflicts of the world today. But nuclear threat is a threat against all of humanity. And the strong norm, the international norm against the use of these weapons, stigmatizing them, that's a responsibility that the hibakusha have taken on. But that is, in the end, a responsibility that state leaders and the people of the world also share. And we need to use their initiative, use their example to strengthen this norm, to make sure that these destructive weapons are never used ever again anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jørgen Watne Frydnes. We have room for very, very short questions, 2 questions from the audience. But then please name and question, don't make statements, because otherwise we will run out of time. But if anyone has something they want to use this opportunity to ask the chair of the committee a question, you're you're able to do that now. Anyone? Yes.
Hi. Is this on? Yeah. I'm Stine Rødmyr from, I used to be an activist in No to Nuclear Weapons. And I was just wondering, in the year 2015, when the first Utøya camp for AUF started up again, we brought Fujimori-san, a survivor from Nagasaki, to Utøya. Did you see us there?
I did. I not only saw you there, but I listened to you there.
Ordinary people can make a difference. Anyone else wanting to ask a question?
When you think of who wants to ask a question, let me just fill in on that, because I think it's symbolically important. This is a camp where the average age is 15. So it's where intergenerational meetings takes place, that this work of the Hibakusha also will have to be done in the future for a successful norm to be upheld. So intergenerational, passing on from generation to generation is key in the time we're in now.
I was so strict when I opened the floor, so perhaps people don't dare to ask a question. Jørgen, may I ask, I know that you're not able to say anything about the considerations, it's very, very secret what you do in the committee. But can you reveal, was it a difficult decision? Because everybody expected something else than this. Can you say something around that? Or?
Well, it will be a bit boring answer to the question saying all decisions are difficult. These decisions, because it affects, of course, the recipient. It could change the lives of people, but it can also change the life of, or the consequences of the world. So yes, it's a difficult decision. It could have implications that we know of and which we don't know of. So every year that decision is hard. The question I often got or had numerous times yesterday is in this year where conflicts seems to be all over the place and where a lot of people feel apathy. Does it matter that we do anything? Because it's war all over the place. In that regard, I would say it's easy to take this decision because this decision, Nihon Hirankia, is such a worthy winner, such a worthy laureate, and in that regard, we had the whole committee behind this decision.
You were talking about memories, people that experienced this 80 years ago. And for 80 years, it has not been used any nuclear weapons. Is this prize about the past, or is it about the future? Well, is it a kind of a yeah.
It is both, but it's not a prize honoring the commitment of people of what they have done. It's what they're doing, and what they're doing is based on what they have done. It is bridging the past and the future. It is bridging memories and new life, new engagement, new generations. And in that sense, it is a prize which we believe is in the heart of the conflicts, the big conflicts of the world today. But it's a prize to the heart of humanity.
Wow. And now, we have a surprise for you, Jørgen, and for you. We are joined by a representative for the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Nihon Hidankyo, Assistant Secretary General Masako Wada. Woo! Masako Wada, hello and welcome to the Nobel Peace Center. We have a full audience here in this room and also online, wanting to learn more about the new Peace Prize, and congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
I just want to clarify so that it's no mistake. The Nobel Peace Center is in the family with the Nobel Institute, where the Nobel Committee is placed, and we work very closely together. And today we are at the Nobel Peace Center, and we're going to celebrate this prize for the whole next year. And today we are here with the chair of the Nobel Committee, Jørgen Watne Frydnes. And so let me introduce you to Jørgen, and he will take over this conversation.
First, I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I ask the obvious question? How did you react when you heard about the prize being announced yesterday?
We didn't expect this such a big surprise. So kind of what? We are not ready. We are not ready to hear the news. So.
How has the reactions been among your members, among the Hibakusha, but also in Japan?
Yeah, overjoyed. Yeah, we are all overjoyed. Yeah, we are so happy. So I'm just come back from the press conference right now. So we had a press conference in 1.5 hours. So we had many questions and a lot of media.
What is your message to the media? What is your message to the world leaders?
Leaders, you mean Prime Minister?
Political leaders, or to the people of the world?
Yeah, we have been. Yeah. What has the world been doing to achieve the goal to abolish nuclear weapons? So it's been 79 years since the atomic bomb. The average of Hibakusha is now 86. Every year, around 9,000 people pass away. We Hibakusha have been sincerely and faithfully working toward the abolition of nuclear weapons without taking even a single day of rest. In Japan, and even for overseas people who hope for the world without nuclear weapons have been supporting us. We continue to talk about our own experiences, although we suffer each and every time we relieve our moment of agony and grief. This sense of mission and determination have been sustaining us, the Hibakusha. Yeah. On July 7th, yes. Go ahead.
What do you think the next couple of days and weeks will be for you with this attention of the world?
We are trying to, this is a very good chance to let the world know what is the meaning of Nobel Prize of Hidankyo got. And I'm sorry to say that in Japan, even in Japan, Nihon Hidankyo, everybody that doesn't know what the Nihon Hidankyo have been doing and Hibakusha's activity. So that's a very good chance. The last chance, maybe. We have been trying to, yeah. So we are aging, so 80. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm the youngest. I'm youngest Hibakusha, one of the youngest Hibakusha. So I'm youth group. I'm in the youth group.
Thank you so much. We are really looking forward to welcome you to Oslo in December.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
much.
yes, I'd like to meet you. Yes, we do. Thank you.
This was a very touching experience. And I can just imagine the surprise and how it must feel like if you didn't expect this to happen and then suddenly the world's attention is on you. So this is going to be an extraordinary year ahead of us, Jørgen. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and giving us more insight to the situation, the issue, and the considerations behind this. It was really interesting. And I just think we give Jørgen a warm applause for thanking him. At the Nobel Peace Center, we are thrilled to embark on a year-long journey of celebration, support, and exploration of this vital topic. Throughout the coming year, we will host a series of engaging Nobel Peace Talks, present our iconic Nobel Peace Prize exhibition, traditionally inaugurated by the laureates themselves on December 11th, the day after the ceremony in the Oslo City Hall. And we will offer an extensive educational program in this house for school classes visiting here, but probably also digital for children all over the world to tap into. Our efforts will culminate in the Grand Nobel Peace Conference and Festival in August 2025. Coincidentally, the same month as the 80th celebration. So we hope we can merge these two to something really remarkable next year in August here in Oslo also. So our now let's take a little moment to reflect on how we celebrated last year's laureate, Narges Mohammadi.
Tyranny is what Narges Mohammadi is fighting.
The principles of our religion is about coexistence. They do this because they're afraid of women.
What they want is Narges' silence, and it's such a joy today to see that she has not been silenced.
It's going to be an exciting and a year full of new insight and hopefully engagement. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce the final segment of today's program, insightful comments on the prize from our distinguished expert panel. Leading this discussion is my esteemed and dear colleague from the Nobel Peace Center, Ingvild Bryn Rambøll. Okay, Ingvild,
thank you
the
so
floor
much.
is yours.
Thank you, Kjersti. I think we were all a bit emotional now after what we just saw and heard. But now we're going to talk about the facts, maybe more than emotions. I want to introduce our panel today. First, Tuva Vidskjold. She is coordinator of ICAN, the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, and Nobel Peace Prize laureate of 2017. Welcome to the stage. You can sit here, Tuva. And then we're joined by Kjølv Egeland, senior researcher at NorSAR. Welcome. And last but not least, I might say, Mika Mayumi. She is head of the Oslo branch of the organization No to Nuclear Weapons. Welcome to you as well. I want to start with you, Mika. You're a Japanese anti-nuclear activist, yes. And you grew up in Fukushima, the city that became world famous after the nuclear accident in 2011. Something yes. I think also sparked your anti-nuclear engagement anew. How did you react to the prize announcement yesterday?
First of all, thanks a lot to Nobel Prize Committee. I was very glad. I am very excited to imagine how my people in Japan are pleased to hear this news, because may I say a little about tell you about a little about my relation or my relation to Hidankyo and Hibakusha survivors.
Yes, please.
It is almost Jørgen was born. I was a student in Tokyo, and then I engaged in anti-nuclear movement. So there I got to know Hidankyo and Hibakusha. It is so many years ago, and in 1980 we had a hope. We had hope to do something, but now it's 2024. So and Masako Wada said that many of them, the average of the year is over 80 years. Mm. And that they can experience this moment is very, very important for them and for us to continue the struggle. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. Have you spoken to any of your friends in Japan after the announcement?
Okay, but it's 7 hours difference between Norway and Norway and Japan, and I was working when I got to know this information, so I couldn't take contact, call my friends, and yeah.
But you know it means a lot to them all, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So there are many recipients of this prize this year. A little bit like in 2017, Tuva Vidskjold, when ICAN got the prize, because ICAN is a sort of a combination of 100 and more organizations who've been working for an abolishment on nuclear weapons. Was yesterday a kind of repetition for you from 2017?
Yes, ICANN is actually more than 600 organizations in more than 100 countries. So it's a huge coalition. So we are a lot of people that want to abolish nuclear weapons. The prize is amazing. And first of all, before I say anything else, congratulations to Nyan Handonkyo. And thank you so much for your tireless effort to raise awareness about the humanitarian consequences of nuclear impacts. I'm very grateful for the effort they are doing. And yes, we were not that ready actually. We were a bit surprised. We hadn't foreseen this, but I think it's extremely timely and very, very well deserved. So we just had to stop everything we were doing and try to show the world the importance of this prize and the importance of the work that the hibakushas are doing. They are the real experts of nuclear weapons and what nuclear weapons actually do to people, to cities, to communities. And that has been missing in the debate about nuclear weapons. And I think this prize can contribute to raise that awareness.
And you also know something about what it means to receive a Nobel Peace Prize, because when ICANN got the prize in 2017, it actually helped you in your work towards the UN, didn't it?
Yes, it has been crucial, and I think working with nuclear disarmament feels sometimes a bit like you are meeting a wall, and people are not listening to you, even though we know about the danger, we've heard about the consequences, but they are not reaching through. And the Peace Prize opened doors. It opened doors to state leaders, to decision makers. It comes with funding. It really creates a room where you can actually share the consequences and bring the work for disarmament forward. And I do think that today we live in a time with a very full media landscape where we are competing for attention. And there's a lot of good causes out there. Nuclear disarmament is not the only one. There's a lot of good causes that needs attention. But what this prize does is that it asks us to stop and listen. Stop and listen to the survivors and let them speak for a moment. And I think that is so important. And I think that's the main, hopefully, what this prize will do. It will make us all stop, listen for the next weeks, months, and year to what they are sharing, and use that as a fuel to make sure that nuclear weapons are never, ever used again.
Yeah. Thank you. So to you, Kjell Vegeland, do you share that opinion that this prize can have an impact?
Yes, certainly. I can only join the chorus and congratulate the laureates. And yes, I believe the prize is very timely and hopefully it can even have an impact. I think when we talk about these norms and big structures, it's often easy to forget that a norm, which means simply a widely held belief about standards of behavior, these norms are created by big and small acts and initiatives that are taken over and over again. And clearly the hibakusha have played an instrumental role in creating the norm against using nuclear weapons. We should really keep in mind that this norm is not given by nature or handed down on stone tablets. It emerged, it was created. If you look back at the way in which people, military leaders and political leaders, talked about nuclear weapons in the late 1940s and early 1950s, it's night and day to how we speak about them today, thankfully. Even someone like Thomas Schelling, who was not exactly a dove or peacenik, wrote, I think it was about 15 years ago now, that the emergence of the norm against the use of nuclear weapons was the most remarkable thing to have happened over the course of the nuclear age. And the hibakusha have clearly, as I said, played an instrumental role in creating this norm. They certainly have not done this alone, There's hundreds of resolutions on this topic being passed in the UN. There's multiple treaties. There's been demonstrations all over the world over the course of several years and decades. All of this plays a role, and this is how norms are created and sustained. And I just wanted to add another thing that I think is important, and this is something I was asked about multiple times by journalists yesterday, because it's also very easy to think that norms and these ideas about moral rights and wrongs are only the preserve of idealists and good people. Only good people care about morals. You know, that's the easy way to think about this. But that's not true. You know, norms are manifestations of power in the world, and even the most ruthless practitioners of realpolitik have to take into account norms because they are politically consequential. So even if probably nobody in this room thinks Vladimir Putin has a particularly fine-tuned moral compass, even he has to take this norm into account because the Chinese who back him probably care about this norm. Maybe Xi Jinping doesn't actually personally care about this norm himself, but he has to worry about what countries in the global south think about nuclear weapons and the use of nuclear weapons, because he wants to have a strategy of engaging with the world and growing in a way that is not perceived as too alarming or threatening to other countries. So, just to reinforce that norms are about power and about political consequences, and are not the preserve of idealists and peaceniks. They are very serious things with serious consequences in the world. And again, congratulations to Nihon Hidankyo and to the Nobel Committee for an excellent choice this year.
Mm-hmm. Something that NORSAR is doing is to observe the nuclear test ban and monitor possible nuclear explosions. So you have a sort of an overview of this field from where you sit at the Kjeller outside of Oslo. And I'm wondering what kind of signal you see in the announcement from the Norwegian Nobel Committee yesterday, when Jørgen Frydnes stated that it's important to remember what nuclear weapons are, the most destructive weapons the world have ever seen. Do you think that world leaders will see this as a warning?
I hope so. But I'm also pleased to say that we're not relying on this one initiative alone. I don't want to put too much responsibility on the Nobel Committee or the Nobel Peace Prize, but certainly I hope this can have some small consequence, some small impact. We've seen in recent years certain leaders threaten explicitly with nuclear weapons, and this is something that hopefully can help countervail those kinds of threats. I could maybe add, though, that I think while it's crucial to focus on these explicit threats to use nuclear weapons, I think it would be a disservice and certainly not in keeping with Nihon Hidankyo to only focus on those explicit threats. We need to remember that these weapons are dangerous and they are there, irrespective of whether people are brandishing them expressly or not. Something we've also seen in recent years, in addition to these explicit threats to use, is whispers about maybe restarting nuclear testing programs, which certainly could also be a major threat. As we heard earlier, nuclear weapons have not been used in war since 1945. They have been used for testing more than 2,000 times, with hundreds of thousands of casualties, probably, due to radiation spread across the globe. So this is also a very serious thing that we need to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm. I want to return a little bit to the story of the hibakushas and what they actually are doing. Mika, as you mentioned, they are testimonies of the consequences of nuclear war. And it's quite astonishing to see how many years it took from the bombings in 45 and until the hibakushas started telling their stories. Can you talk a little bit about the secrecy and the taboo surrounding this in the time after World War II?
Yes, today is a glorious moment for Hibakusha and Hidankyo, their organization. But I must say that their history, their activity was not easy, because after the World War II, after bombs in 1945, Japan was occupied by the US American occupation forces, and they prohibit to write or investigate about nuclear weapons and the damages which happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was until 1952 when Japanese government got sovereignty again, but still so renounced the right to claim damages for the atomic bombing from the United States of America because of the San Francisco Peace Treaty in 1951. So, meantime, the Hibakusha had been deprived of their health by the radiation from the bombs, disadvantaged in the society, and suffered social discrimination, especially women like you, like me, from Hiroshima and Nagasaki could not tell others that they were from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because if they did it, they could not be married. Such a stigmatization and discrimination, unfortunately, is still in Japan. Yeah. So one more important task for Hidankyo is the action to pass a Hibakusha aid law, providing state compensation for the Hibakusha themselves and families, as well as a guarantee that there should never be another Hibakusha. Not only in Japan, but also all over the world. Surprisingly, they still need to fight to ensure that all Hibakusha get their rights for their health. And another thing, another task of Hidankyo is information. Since their foundation in 1955, 56, yes. They have been very active, visited the United Nations and participated in the UN special sessions on disarmament, and many countries, including Norway, all of these years. They have gathered millions of signs to abolish nuclear weapons, and which are given to United Nations. And this is important. I mean, these campaigns of Hidankyo are important contribution to the United Treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons in 2021. And without Hibakusha, of course, maybe we could not sit here and talk each other. You never know.
Yeah, we have a lot of things to thank them for. And let's hope also that this prize will help their stories live on, because as Masako Wada, the youth branch of the organization, said, their stories, they need help to live on in the years to come.
Well, sorry, Ingrid, because one more urgent task is to involve the youth.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Pupils, young people to continue the fight. So everybody said yesterday, the news and one of the representative from Hidankyo was there, and 3 pupils from I guess senior high school were there. All they were very excited. So they have succeeded in this task to inspire and recruit the youth.
Mm. And in that respect, Tuva, this is not just a disarmament prize, but also a prize to civil society and the importance of organizations like Nihon Idankyo. Is that something you can recognize in your work?
Yes, of course. I think civil society has been extremely important in raising the topic of nuclear weapons and the importance of the nuclear taboo in general. And the stories of the hibakushas are in the core of what we are doing. It's the core of our movement, and it's an honor to work alongside them to abolish nuclear weapons. And I think this prize gives us the power in our contact with the leaders as well, and it shows that nuclear weapons, as the chair of the Nobel Committee said earlier, it's often talked about as something abstract. It's like a word game in the books, and very seldom talked about as something that actually happens. And when that happens, when we talk about nuclear weapons as what they are, weapons of mass destruction, it becomes clear that we have to do whatever we can to abolish them and to eliminate them. And I think this prize gives kind of us energy in this moment and shows that our voice matters. Yeah.
Mm. Do you think, Kjell Egeland, that is it less focus now on human consequences of nuclear war than maybe 10 or 10 years ago, and more? Do we talk more about the technical issues?
I think that's difficult to estimate, but certainly given the world that we live in today, with multiple wars raging, including here in Europe, it's certainly tempting to reach for the traditional military arguments. And in that kind of discourse, these human impacts often do not take center stage, let's put it that way. So I think this is a very timely corrective to that type of thinking.
Mm. So it will help reminding us what we're talking about when we talk about nuclear, a possible nuclear use of nuclear arms.
Absolutely.
Can you just tell us a little bit about the situation for nuclear arms in the world today? How is it? How are the facts and figures in 2024 compared to 2017, for instance, when I can receive the prize?
Well, nuclear weapons are very complex weapon systems. They take a long time to build, and all of these processes are very dragged out. So generally, the situation when it comes to the hardware is pretty similar in 2024 as it was in 2017. There's been a small decline in the overall number of nuclear weapons in the world since 2017, but what we've seen in the last couple of years is that number is now starting to tick back up the other way, largely due to these nuclear weapons rearmament and modernization programs that we heard about earlier that are going on in all of the 9 nuclear armed states today. They are spending enormous amounts on renewing their arsenals and building new hardware, which in some cases is set to last out this century. So we've had 79 years of nuclear weapons so far. The big powers are currently planning on another 79 years. And as we heard earlier, that the big question is for how long can we continue without an accident happening? Because, of course, while this norm against nuclear weapons is very important, it's, of course, not a perfect guardrail against something happening. So I think that's something that we certainly need to pay attention to. And in the last couple of years, of course, with the war in Ukraine especially, but also increasing great power tension between China and the United States, we're seeing nuclear weapons gaining in prominence and salience in these big powers' security doctrines. But of course, that's in a sense only part of the story, because there's also some good news. There's lots of countries joining treaties prohibiting nuclear weapons and prohibiting nuclear testing. There is progress on some of those other fronts. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that there's actually a ban, a UN ban on nuclear weapons.
And there are things that also go in the right direction. And I think this prize, one thing I was thinking about when listening to Kjell now was that often we are met, when talking about the humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons, that we are naive. And that's the naive thing to talk about. And I think this prize proves otherwise, that's actually also the hard facts. And that's what we have to take into consideration when we talk about nuclear weapons and security policies in order to make us all safe. And this prize had that effect that yesterday the Norwegian politicians actually had to answer for their nuclear weapon politics. And they can choose to do what they want to do, but they are actually held accountable. And that's important. It gives us the possibility to hold our leaders accountable. This prize make you all be here now. We all listened to Hibakusha. And that's already changing the discourse, changing it away from being naive to talk about the consequences of nuclear weapons to actually making that the thing we need to do in order to keep the world safe for us all.
I think we want to applaud that last comment. And that resonates so well with what all Nobel Peace Prize laureates say when they comment on the prize in retrospect, maybe a year or 10 years after they received the Nobel Peace Prize. They all say that this prize helped us highlight the cause that we've been fighting for our whole lives. A lot of them have been saying the same things for decades and decades, and then with the Nobel Peace Prize, people start to listen in a new way, and the spotlight is put on the cause in a new way. So I think that's a beautiful place to finish this talk, and with repeating the slogan of the Hibakushas, no more Hibakushas, and hoping that the Nobel Peace Prize can help achieve that goal. So thank you so much to all of you, and thank you to you who came to listen. Thank you.
I just want to thank our speakers for the insights and everything we have learned today. This is a very special occasion for us today. So we have a small gift for you. It's the book, People Who Changed the World. It's a book about all the laureates. This will be updated by the end of this year with the new Peace Prize laureate. It's also a box of chocolate medals and our little peace stove as a sign of peace. So thank you so much for coming and contributing to this event and giving us some insights. And it's, you can. And I hope that you have enjoyed this hour with us today, and I have a safe journey home, and I hope to see you again during the next year when we're going to delve into this topic more. Thank you so much. Thank you.